Gundam.tk presents Gundam F90 Type A.D.S. What's up again, everybody? It's Robert, 184, 2Rs, 2Bs, Gundam Reviews.net, and the Gundam F90. You've seen everything from the unbox to all of the weapons and now the actual mobile suit when it's just in plain F90 mode. But don't forget, the most important feature of this guy is that he's going to come with the A, the D, and the S parts, which are all laid out here. You can see those in the earlier parts as well, and now it's time to get this guy loaded up for whatever kind of war he may end up facing. With all of the parts removed, you can see where all the hard points are. You're going to have these ones up on the shoulders, down on the forearms, here on the backpack, down on the side of the waist, the front of the waist, and down here. And again, I just really recommend using something to get these little parts off because those polycaps can keep them in there quite well. And here you have 13 little parts that are just waiting to get lost, so remember, Ziplocs can be your friend. And I still think it's great that inside the manual they're going to have a complete list for all three types as to which weapons go where and all their names, which I will now promptly forget. If maneuverability is your game, it looks like the A-type is going to be for you. And I've actually got to say that right out of the box, this is without the aid of any silver paint except for the bazooka that you can see there on the back. That actually this guy's going to look alright. And I would say that's just for the simple reason that when you're popping off all of these covers, they're blue, and you're replacing it with more blue, but because it suits the overall theme of the Gundam, it's actually going to work. The leg parts are going to fit on very well. You can see that there's nothing exposed in terms of no problems down there. Over here, when you attach it on, it's actually going to fit quite well over the waist, but then you're going to have something very strange, and I don't know if you can make it out from this angle. It's interesting that this one doesn't have anything on the front, so you're just going to put those yellow parts back in, but when you take a look at the side parts here, you can see that basically they're the same piece. They're the same way, and thankfully the arm falling out is just going to make it easier to show that off. But what that means is that when you put them on, because they're identical when you look at them, they're going to look asymmetrical when you put them on. They're not the same on either side, which is a very strange thing, and especially since you've got a seal here on the back, is just one of the more questionable choices in terms of armaments. I don't think I've ever seen that before on a Gundam. And if you thought the bazooka was going to stay in there nice and solid, well, no, the answer is just pretty much 1990. What else can I say? You have the option, it looks like, that you could actually use it an attachment point, but there are nothing to use except for these things. And because the bazooka doesn't have any differentiation, nothing is going to lock into place, so you can expect it just to do that. And with the arms falling off, you can imagine that it could fall out quite easily. But the top part is actually going to work a little bit better than I expected. You pop the shoulders off, or you're supposed to, so that these can actually go down and fit, well, somewhat snugly on there. You can see that bazooka popping out all over the place. But anyway, it is cool that you could actually have these aim up in different directions if you wanted to shoot, or if you wanted to actually create a somewhat dynamic pose. So overall, with the addition of the backpack, this mode has won a lot more points in my eyes than I expected that it would. For the combination of close range and ranged attacks, yes, the Destroid mode is supposed to be the one that works, and this one, just in terms of pure visuals, is not going to pop as much as I expected that it would. The silver is going to look good, and it's very warlike, I suppose, just to have that little bit of gunmetal feel to it. However, the A-type certainly strikes me as being more interesting, but this one is going to have the win, at least with that hip gun, which is going to be the most interesting feature. Down here, these are going to fit on very well over the legs. They're going to fit over that raised part quite well. You've got an ammo clip on there. This is going to plug into the back quite well and only interfere with the movement of the arm, which is going to fall off anyway. However, you may have noticed in the attachment parts there, when you're putting that together, the polycap is going to pivot out of place. So whenever you're putting on either the A or the D parts, you're just going to have to be careful to get that polycap in there. And the silver parts up on the shoulder, they look okay, and actually that white seal isn't all that bad. The shield is going to look great from the back, you can see that little bit there, but from the front, having the big boring white surface, I'd say that that D part certainly could use a few paint touch-ups to really bring it to life. And so many of these parts are going to just fall off when you're actually trying to put on and take things off from the hard points. Now, I don't know about you, but I think the S-Type has to at least take the cake in terms of visual impact. The A part was great just because it's got all that blue, but the green, and especially just the fact that I added very lazily that little bit of silver and the red for the missiles, certainly brings this guy to life, I think. These things back there, they're not as distracting as you'd think they'd be. I guess they sort of make sense to have them. The silver missiles down there are very nondescript. If they were, they may be even more visible if they were left in green. But it's these arms and the attachment point, especially with the hose. Of course, they're going to make that fall out, the shoulder fall down even more, but the yellow stickers, the red and the silver there, the fact that he's lost his arms and replaced them with these huge guns, I think is just going to make this guy look pretty impressive. The backpack is all good because it's got the independent movement up there, so you can move the big guns and the small guns, and you don't miss the shoulder blue parts not being there. This guy has very much a heavy arms kind of feel, even before the heavy arms existed. You can see the fists in there, which isn't necessarily a great thing, but then again, it's sort of just more realistic that you're just going to snap that on and you don't have to pop the hands out or anything and worry about losing those. But I really am impressed because you can just move those things around at a few angles, and the hoses so far made out of the springs have had no problem staying in place. This guy really seems like a lot of visual fun. And finally, what I've been waiting for ever since I read the manga is to do the full equipment version of the Type A.D.S. Gundam F90. Now, the only thing is, when you're going to look at this, I don't want to say it's disappointing, but compared to just the S-Type, I have to say that this one just lacks a little bit of visual punch. You've got the bazooka on the back, which isn't necessarily the best. I'd sort of say that this is the most interesting of the hip-mounted weapons. These parts down here also, the silver very much gets lost in there, and they're certainly not the more interesting ones. I'd almost go with these thrusters or something like that. You could put both of those on, whether you paint them up or not. Here I find it's a little bit of a strange choice that you're only going to have one of these on the shoulders, and I'm not actually sure exactly what goes on the right hip. I believe it's that part there for the D. It would sort of make sense that you've got the D on the forearm and the D on the hip there. And also you've got these parts on the front which are okay, but I'd say my favorite part has to be the green one. This is certainly the most interesting, and on the top it is sort of cool that you get that differentiation again, that you can move the four guns at a different height. Just strange that you're always going to have one shooting over that shoulder. But that is one of the bonuses of this whole thing. Unless you're a slave to exactly what you make out from a few screenshots or from the game or from reading the manga, you can put on whichever combination of any of these weapons you choose and make your own ultimate F90. Somewhat unfortunate that in some of the art they showed with the shield on there, but because you've got the backpack plugged in, there is no option to do this unless you want to go drill your own hole and pop in a polycap. This guy sort of reminds me of the V2 Assault Buster just because it packs quite a punch, but even if you are looking for size and filled outness, you're not going to see it compared to the newer master grades like you're seeing here with the 007 sword. And full equipment F90 meet full armor Unicorn Gundam.